good afternoon, everybody. As ever, we have some amazing content for you and a great speaker who you can also see on the screen next to me today. We're going to be talking about one of those great subjects because anybody that's been in technical SEO for a few years, like myself and Chris, and I'm sure the people that are on the call, it's how do you effectively prioritize technical SEO and get that buy-in from the organization? Because as we know, tech SEO isn't kind of that sexiest of media things that you can go there with and talk about and show. And I think it's really important that we figure out how we give sort of tangible insights into the performance of actually doing the technical SEO side, or the foundational SEO, as I call it, on a website, to allow you to actually see the business benefits and the actual drive that that can actually give from a visibility point of view on Google. As I say, we have a great presenter for you today, Mr. Chris Spann, who is tech SEO at Lumar, who literally obviously lives and breathes this on a day-to-day basis. So welcome, Chris, and thank you for taking the time to jump on board and do the presentation today.
No problem. Cheers, John.
So if you've been on these webinars before, we're going to follow a similar sort of format in a way to what we normally do. Obviously, I've talked about Chris. For those of you who haven't seen me present one of these before, because I've been doing them for a few years now, and it's been a little while since I've done one. But my name's Jon Myers. I'm the founder and MD of Ascending Media, so I live and breathe sort of SEO consultancy on a day-to-day basis as well. We're going to go through the process of this introduction. Then obviously we've got an agenda to talk about the presentation side of things, is how we actually go about solving that technical SEO challenge. How do we prioritize that on a step-by-step basis? How do we communicate the importance of technical SEO up the chain to those people that maybe don't understand how we actually sit as SEOs within the organization and the value that we technically add? We'll look at how we can actually move that language from the tech SEO language into common language for those people that need to understand that. And then we'll kind of wrap up, as we always do, with a bit of interactive Q&A. And also me and Chris are going to have a little bit of a chat along the way too. So when we think about that from a point of view of format, please start to think about those questions. As you will see on your screen, at the bottom of the box, there's the Q&A questions box. So if you can start thinking as Chris is presenting about any questions you may like to ask Chris or myself, please do put those into the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. Don't wait till the presentation's finished. If you see something, start racking them up in there. I can start categorizing those questions and putting them together to put to Chris post the presentation when we can start getting into the Q&A section. Also, please do give us the feedback. It takes about a minute when you close down the window on the screen. We really do value that feedback at Luma. It's important to us. Let us know what you thought of the presentation today. Was the content great? Was the speaker great? How was the moderator, obviously, as well? Is there anybody you'd like to see on future webinars? Is there any topics you'd like to hear from us on future webinars as well? As always as well, this is a recorded session. So for anybody that isn't here today, we will be producing a recorded version, which will come out on email to every single attendee as well. So you can dip back in at your leisure, go back through everything that we talked about. And there'll also be a big write-up as well as a blog on the Lumar website too. So a few more things as well, just to think about before we start getting into this as well. If you do need any closed captions settings, obviously you can enable those by clicking on the CC icon. If that's not available, you may need to click on the more icon first to show subtitle as well, just in case there's anybody on here today that requires that sort of side of things, from enabling a live script, transcript. And obviously, as I mentioned, this will all be distributed again for you guys and available for you guys in a few days' time via the Lumar blog. It's great to see as well. Philip's already in there. He's already put a question in the box and we haven't even started the presentation. So thank you, Philip. I'm looking forward to some more questions from you guys as well. So without further ado, I want to start this process and start making this a little bit more interactive. So we're going to actually ask you guys a question first. So please see on the screen, we have our first question. What is the single biggest challenge you are currently facing as part of your technical SEO strategy? So please, guys, do jump in there. We're going to give it about 20 seconds for you guys to answer this and let us know what you think, and then we'll get the answer back.
Great. Well, while we're doing this, John, is it worth me starting, or should we just wait till we get the...
I think we'll probably have the answer in a second. I'm hoping,
no
Chris.
Oh, there we go, yeah.
There she blows, right. So, as I sort of alluded to at the start, and you guys have come forward and answered the questions, it's really interesting to see that actually it is showing the impact / ROI. So I'm hoping that as part of this presentation today, we're going to cover that for you guys. And obviously the resources side of things is always a big thing. So I'm happy to, we'll go through the slides and we'll talk about those areas and give you that sort of knowledge base and that ability to communicate up the pole to the senior staff. They maybe sign off your budgets and things from a technical SEO point of view, and actually show you tangible ways of showing ROI. I know we've got a case study in the presentation as well as talk about this, and we'll allude to some of those as we start to get into the Q&A as well. So without further ado, I would like to hand over to Mr. Chris Spann, lead technical SEO at Lumar. And the floor is yours, sir, for the next sort of 15 to 20 minutes while we explain how you actually go about solving this challenge. Over to you, Chris.
Great, thank you very much. Currently I'm a senior technical SEO at Lima, but before then I spent 10 years or so in-house working for a very SEO reliant business in the price comparison and sort of affiliate space. So I've done my time in the trenches, I guess, when it comes to this stuff. So first thing, technical SEO challenge. Put simply, nobody knows this is technical SEO until there is a technical SEO problem, right? We're one of those, as John referred to it before, deeply unsexy parts of a business where people see you as an annoying set of tick boxes that appear as part of a project that they have to just go through, etc., etc., etc. Nobody particularly likes doing them. We used to be lumped in with the same sort of things as things like security and things like that, except security nowadays has way more of a thing to it. But again, it's the same thing, right? A security team, you don't notice a security team if they're doing a good job. Because if your security team are doing the right job, your site doesn't get hacked in the same way that if your technical SEO team or your technical SEO is doing a good job, your site stays in the index, pages rank, etc., 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 right? So I was going to say, feel free to shout in the comments if you've heard any of these before or anything similar. But I think all of these are things that I've heard at one point or another while I've been in-house, and again, sometimes still when we're brought on for consultancy. So number one being, we didn't do that where I used to work, which is an absolute favourite of mine that you'd sometimes hear from devs. We didn't do that at X place where I used to be, and it always seemed fine. And you kind of think, well, okay, but we do that here. You know what I mean? This bizarre thing where a developer, I sometimes find developers who did an SEO sprint, and this doesn't happen as much nowadays, to be fair, but a developer who did a sprint 6 months ago, or a year ago, or 2 years ago, as sometimes you would get, thinks that those everything that they did in that sprint is still applicable, or still applicable to a different type of site. And the next one being, but these are just guidelines, right? Oh, this is just, Google says these things, but it doesn't mean them, right? And no, we're technical SEOs, we are lucky in that we're one of the few parts of SEO where we are given documentation sometimes, right? And we're actually given concrete validators and tools and things like that. There's no way you can stick a page into Google and say, well done, we think you'll rank 3rd for car insurance. But we can put a page into Google and say, yes, all your structured data is working correctly, your site's nice and fast, etc., etc., etc. Then the next one is, it'll be tricky to do that working to the design, or it's not how the designers want it. Normally that's indicative of a world where an SEO is not being brought in from the start. And again, it's this idea, that does sound difficult to do. And it's like, well, if you'd like the page to continue ranking, you'd like the site to continue ranking, then maybe we should consider it. Yes, but Google can render JavaScript now. That's absolutely true. Google can render JavaScript now. But if you give Google 2 million or 5 million server-side, client-side rendered pages and ask it to render all that JavaScript, I bet you it won't, or it'll take a very long time to do it, right? But again, you will see I think it's, John, do you feel this way now that the great JavaScript wars are starting to calm down a bit now? I'm not seeing quite as many terrifyingly all JavaScript all the time websites where links are dealt with purely in JavaScript or whatever. That's starting to calm down a little bit now.
No, I think that's starting to calm down. I think a lot of people are actually starting to think about it a little bit more as to actually how you can textually build the page rather than actually building it via, as you say, all those sort of JavaScript calls. It's very, very rarely I come across websites. I still do. I've come across a few websites that are still incredibly JavaScript heavy. When you actually look at the load time of the page and the percentage of the page that's actually in JavaScript, and you just go, this just won't do. You start looking how you can actually unpick some of those, JavaScript pieces and just actually speed the page up effectively.
Yeah.
So I would agree with you on that one, Chris, for sure.
The big thing for me is always try and use your website while you're on a train. See what happens. And then obviously you've got, oh, sorry, I thought you just did keywords. And then the final one, oh, can we bring you on for the last week to do the SEO? Whatever that means, right? So this is the world in which we live. And these are the situations, the problems that we have. So we need to start being able to prioritize problems that we have. And broadly speaking, this is a thing that I use sort of internally, or at least in my head. And I am aware that there is a third dimension to this, which is kind of impact. But number one, I'm going to assume that you are a smart enough SEO to understand the impact of each of these tasks yourself. And also, I put it to you that trying to make this diagram 3-dimensional was really, really difficult, and it didn't work no matter what I tried to do. So we're just going to kind of go through how we deal with different issues. So basically, so imagine you are using Lumar or your crawler of choice. You've got a crawl results at the back of it, and you've got a list of actions at the back. How do we go about trying to decide what to do? So thing number one, if it's low effort and low dev involvement, down here, do it now, do it yourself. Jump into the CMS, get your content team, whatever, to do the work, and just get it in, get it done, get it sorted. I'd put sort of broken links into things like this. And again, it all depends on the CMS and the control you've got. You might be able to fix redirects, things like that. Nice and simple. Next up, if it's low dev involvement but and low effort, or sorry, high dev involvement but low effort, then prioritize that internally, right? That's something that is going to be something that, by internally, I mean something that your SEO team or that you can do, right? This might not be something that you can just hop into the CMS and do quickly. It might be something that's going to take a long time just because there's a lot of it to do, or it's a bigger task, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But this is, again, another one that you can just take on yourself. Next off, if it's low effort and high dev involvement, see if it can be squeezed in, by which I mean, if you have a good relationship with a developer, if you have what I like to call a tame developer, and you know that they're working on something else, if they're already in Tag Manager or they're doing some work on something else in the head of the page, and you know that canonical tags are broken, have a quick word with them, see if you can get that stuff in. If it's anything small, quick, or you think it's small or quick, then by all means, as I say, hopefully you have a reasonable relationship with at least one developer. If not, now's the time to start taking cakes into the office and make that relationship. And just, you'd be amazed what you can just get kind of put in as a bonus while someone's got something open. Also, actually on that, you will have to accept that sometimes what we as SEOs see as being potentially low effort tasks are actually really not, and it can really depend on how your site is built, and et cetera, et cetera. When I was in-house, my main job was basically I spoke just enough marketing to kind of properly explain to the dev team what marketing wanted, and I spoke just enough dev to explain to the marketing team why X or Y change wasn't actually as simple as just quickly tweaking a head tag or whatever. So if you are told by a dev it's a bigger job, so you might just have to accept that, or at least understand and learn why. And then finally, we've got write it on a card and get it on the board, right? Whether that's Jira, whether that's whatever system your business use. I'm willing to bet your development team has a board somewhere, whether it's physical or virtual. And again, at least once a week, they either physically or virtually stand around it and they discuss what's on it, right? And at that point, we need to understand how we get cards on the board. Again, if you've never done it before, speak to project managers. Again, if you've got a friendly dev, speak to them and just say, hey, how do I go about kind of officially getting something on the board, right? But this is my point now. This is the bit that we're going to focus on, I think, for the rest of the call. So just before we carry on, another poll question. Which team is the driving force behind auditing, monitoring, and optimizing your website's technical health? And I'm very interested in, take technical health to mean whatever you see it as meaning, if that makes sense. We'll just give you 30 seconds and then we'll crack on. It was actually the big change I found when I came here, John, because previously in my life, SEO had always been a marketing thing, always been a marketing function. I just sort of thought that's how it worked, even though I sat next to the dev team, et cetera, and then to come here and start working with other clients and find out that in a lot of places, its product was kind of quite surprising, quite heartening as well. So,
no, definitely, I wouldn't agree more. I think when you talk about finding a friendly dev, I think that's a really good analogy. I mean, I've always said if you can find a dev that actually understands SEO and understands what you're actually asking them to do, it's worth its weight in gold. I mean, it's such a big thing. And we always make fun.
Yeah, I find as well that a good dev is interested in the stuff anyway, because they like making good websites, right? Especially when you get into page speed stuff. That's, some of them don't know about all the different tools and stuff that we have. And it's great to be able to have that stuff and be able to show them that, like, hey, if we do this, we can make X and Y so much faster, you know.
No.
So no surprise, SEO is the team that's come out the top of that. Obviously a little bit selection bias there with it being SEOs on the call, or mainly SEOs on the call.
Were we going to expect a different answer to that in any way, shape or form? I'm surprised it's only 46%, to be honest.
Should have said which team is the smartest and most handsome in your business. But obviously, so as I say, we're going back to this thing now. How do you go about communicating the importance? And we've got a few things internally that we use for this now. And the big thing that we use now is this thing called the traffic funnel. And these things are absolutely amazing. You can build one of these yourself as well, using any crawl data that you've got. So effectively, what this does is on the back of a Lumar crawl, we then say, okay, well, how many pages 200 versus non-200? That's availability. Then we look at whether those pages are indexable, unique, discoverable. Rankability is basically a phrase. Does it mean, do they have clicks in Search Console? So, because it's the only data source we can really use. Excuse me. And then experience. So are the pages quick, are they accessible, things like that. Because what you will quite often see, especially in very fast-moving product businesses and things like that, is you will find a business will do loads and loads of work on their new product, right? And they're really absolutely hammering the product, and they think their product pages are the absolute bee's knees, and they're amazing, and they'll release 2.5 million new product pages, except they're not indexable, or they're not crawlable, or they all sit behind a button on the homepage that means you can't use it. We see a lot of, again, listing sites and price comparison businesses and things like that require a form to be filled in before you can get anything of worth at the site. Google's never going to see that. And we know that, but it's amazing how many SEOs don't necessarily know that. I've had a number of kind of light bulb moments with devs where they've gone, so Google can't use the form, can it? No, it can't. And that's the problem. So having a thing like this is amazing, because you can basically say, well, there's two things you can do with this. Is number one is you can say, well, hey, this new product release over here, that's great. But right now, we've got this problem where back here, where these pages just simply aren't being looked at. When I heard we were releasing these, I was a bit okay about them. And then the first time I saw one, and I saw like a drop like that in indexability, it makes you go, oh, this is good, this is useful, you know what I mean? Also, this is MD level, right? This is the sort of thing that you can take to a switched on MD. You can say, well, hey, big things drop off real quick, right? They understand funnels, they understand this stuff. And then the other thing that we have is a technical health score. And again, you can come up with your own system for this. There's a number of different ways you can do it. But again, what we found this is very, very useful for is putting under the nose of an MD who's not this switched on. or who just sees SEO as part of, or technical SEO especially, as part of a wider thing, and they only really speak lines going up or lines going down. They don't care about the detail in it. They don't care about any of the things on the right here that are causing these errors. What they care about is the score and what it's done. These things are also very, very useful. Again, if you've been in SEO for an amount of time, you will have been in the office on a Wednesday morning or something and come in, and all the devs are really happy with the new release they've done, and all of a ssudden the SEO team look like their hair's on fire because it turns out something's gone live with a no index on it, or whichever SEO disaster is your favorite one. Seen them all, continue to see them. My wife is an SEO as well, and I think last week she had someone put a site live with the no index tags in it. Still happens every day.
Happens all the
Will
time.
always happen. Yeah,
403 on the homepage. That's the best one.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that'll be a real good one. Or yeah, some weird thing where somehow, you still need to be on the internal network to get to the new pages, something real funky like that. So that's the sort of thing where you can present a big drop in a graph to anyone, and everyone speaks big drop in a graph. You know what I mean? Everyone understands what this line's gone really, really south means. And then the other thing that we do, and I can't believe I forgot to put it in the screenshot, we have benchmarking now across a number of different areas. So SaaS, e-commerce, publishing, a few others. And that's a little bit of secret sauce from us, involving kind of crawling a load of sites and then kind of mushing the data together into a benchmark score. But you can then also use that to, again, say to your marketing director, I always say marketing directors. You can, and I'm very well aware, John, that you're an MD, but you can tell who the person that I used to struggle with, right, when I was in house.
I've been in your place, Chris. I can vouch for that, and I think.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I think on these last two slides, I think they're worth the weight in gold. I'm not just saying that because we're on a Lumar webinar. I use this on a day-to-day basis. I use this with my clients. So when I get asked on a month-by-month basis, how are we doing? And, after being in SEO for many, many years, and working agency side and working client side and working tech side, that was the question that you always used to get asked. So how are we doing? How are we improving on our SEO? And you were like, well, it would come down to, well, some of our rankings have gone up.
Yeah.
We've gained some positions on this keyword, or we've gone over here, or this, and this. Actually using this on a month-by-month basis or a quarterly basis to put in front of your client and actually say your in-house MD or marketing director, and say, right, we've gone from an 82 to an 87 in the last quarter. And this is where it's happened. And actually the area we're going to be focusing on for the next quarter is discoverability, because we're down on this score. So we're going to be doing all the technical fixes in this area. And I'll be back next quarter to show you how we've improved that. It's worth its weight in gold. I can't say enough about that.
Also, I think while we're talking about kind of effectively prioritizing, the other nice thing about these health scores, and I use these, so again, working more in a client sort of area, more clients, more agency style now. If I have an off week, say with a client, week where I've not got a call or whatever, I can jump into their account. I can look at these health scores and go, that line's flat. Not much has changed since the last call. Don't need to. It means I can stay relatively informed, but it also means I can go, okay, I don't need to worry about client A for this week. I can focus on client B because they've got this big migration happening, whatever. It means that I know that client A is doing all right. And then the final thing you can do in terms of prioritizing, and I'm aware this one gets a bit expensive, it certainly can be a bit expensive depending on how you do it, is testing. If you can run your own testing as an SEO, you can make a huge difference. So if you can get an A/B solution in, they're great. So I'm thinking, again, when I was in-house, I used to use Search Pilot, or Distilled ODN, as it was called then. There's a number of other ones. I believe you can do similar sort of things in Akamai. Any edge workers, I think, will have some sort of A/B solution here. But basically what it allows you to do is create a subset of pages and change the HTML on them. And then the thing that Search Pilot does really nicely is it allows you to So one, it does all the maths for you and says, hey, we've got this group of pages versus this group of pages, and these are about equal. And then it will also say, well, we ran this test for a month, and in that month, the test set did 10% better in terms of clicks than the control set. Then they do some statistical probability stuff, and then they say, you know, on the balance of things, this seems like a good idea, right? So again, if you can run that test, and I believe there's a number of things now that don't require you to be able to write any JavaScript or anything like that. You can kind of drag and drop elements onto pages. Obviously really useful for things like internal linking and stuff like that. Again, I'm thinking, especially if you work on a big programmatic site or a big e-com site, and you're really struggling even to get some extra, you know, a new linking component built. If you can build a quick and dirty version of that linking component and say, well, look at the difference it makes, then go for it. The other nice thing about an A/B solution is if you're smart with it, and if you've got the ability to do it, you can do almost anything with it. The one problem with that being, you potentially end up in a situation where a lot of the site ends up running off your A/B solution while you're waiting for the quick dirty fix to get turned into a proper dev fix. Another thing you can do, and I'm a really, really big fan of this, is test your theory on, I'm going to call it a B tier section. Maybe I even mean a C tier section or subsection of your site. What I mean by this is a group of pages where there's enough traffic or enough there's enough action on those pages for you to notice a change, but not enough to notice a real, not enough to cause a problem if there's a real tanking. So again, when I used to work in the travel business, obviously we wouldn't do this with the, we wouldn't run any tests on the Spain travel homepage, Spain holidays homepage, or the USA holidays homepage, but we might do it on I don't know, Bulgaria, something like that, or some smaller places around there. And it just allows you to actually say, well, hey, we did it on this small section of the site, and it actually provided a difference, right? So let's see if we can roll this out to the entire site. And then the final thing you can do in terms of testing is use web page tests. If you use the premium version of web page test, which is really, really cheap, it's pennies, I think, for credit. They actually have like a load of automatic tests that you can just kind of turn on. Now, with the proviso that a lot of this is just page speed, really, because of what the web page test is there for. But I quite often find, again, if you want to ingratiate yourself with devs, showing them some potential page speed improvements, and also coming to them and be like, hey, because a nice thing you can do with web page tests is display two page loads side by side and really show them that, like, hey, by doing this, we could knock, 0.5 seconds off, or a second off. Extra points if you do everything on like a 3G simulated 3G connection, so it's all nice and slow in the first place as well. Really hammer home the point. And then for me, this is the big thing, right? A common language for all. So as I said before, marketing directors don't speak technical SEO. They speak money, right? So no technical SEO has ever got anything prioritized by going to their MD, their product leader, their whoever, and saying, oh, well, there's a load of schemas not validated since the last update. They don't care. They might care then when, click-through rates drop because you've lost your review stars, or, you're not getting shown in the local pack, whatever. In a similar way to, do you remember, John, the first time you tried to talk to somebody about canonical tags? And trying to make
conversation now.
Yeah, trying to make somebody care about canonical tags. They don't care. What they care about is you saying, well, by doing this, we run the risk of our big product page no longer ranking, right? And then that means that not only do we stop ranking, but it means that our competitor starts ranking instead, or worse, we start battling ourselves for our own thing. We've got 3 pages all of a sudden ranking, none of which really quite fulfill what the user is looking for.
But it's actually explaining that to somebody up the chain who's not actually in the world of SEO.
It's real difficult.
Rel Canonical and hreflang were the 2 sort of usual ones that people just can't quite get their heads around.
Yeah. So it's a redirect. Well, no. but sort of, but no, not really. And then again, devs speak in bytes and in seconds and in requirements. I thought I knew how to write requirements until the first time I tried to build something and then gave it to somebody else to use, and within 30 seconds it was broken. Because it turns out, and again, I've discovered this so much more since moving client side, that sometimes the words that come out of somebody's mouth don't necessarily, between them leaving their mouth and entering your brain, they sometimes mean other things. So learning how to write good requirements gets things prioritized, because it means that, well, it actually means that devs understand the work, right? And again, if you can, for devs, if you can put things down to bytes and seconds, that really, really helps them out, helps them to understand exactly what is what's important to you. And then finally, give your team information, right? The most successful I've been in-house doing technical SEO was when I worked with a tight-knit group of developers who actually understood, well, to begin with, they understood the importance of SEO. They understood that 60% of the traffic was SEO, right? There's a point that you can hugely hammer home. You know what I mean? Every company update, you can kind of point to the big chunk of the pie chart that's you and go, and you can trot out that line that people use, it's free traffic. So by giving people context, that really, really helps. Shared goals as well. Again, page speed. Most devs love making their sites faster. Again, good devs love making their sites faster. So if you can get involved in a page speed sprint, that's amazing. Or again, if you can say to them, people don't realize some of the tools that SEOs have. We're one of the only parts of the business outside of, again, security, who could crawl a website, or who can find every instance of, X word, et cetera, on a website. So sometimes just being available to help people out with this stuff helps you get that stuff prioritized on boards. And then again, finally, requirements, writing good requirements that actually mean something to your users. Makes a real big difference. Not to your users, sorry, to your devs, makes a really big difference, because it actually gives them something to work towards, and it means then the same job won't be back on their desk in 3 weeks' time when it turns out you actually didn't mean all the links, you meant all the links in the main nav, or whatever. Yeah. And then finally, and this is a thing that you have to learn, you have to learn yourself, and also you have to teach everybody else. And hopefully there's some slides in this graph, in this deck, that will help you be able to do both, right? It'll help you keep the faith, so to speak. What was that our Prime Minister said the other day? Hold your nerve, and also have faith in the work that you've done, right? So this is a use case for a business that we work with called Snake. And we presented this at Brighton, or these graphs anyway, at Brighton SEO earlier this year. So the issue with Sneak was they had millions of unindexed pages, very limited dev resource. Again, everyone agreed that SEO was important, but there wasn't anybody to do the work. So we did an enormous internal linking review with them, worked with dev to surface more data. That was really, really tricky. Again, we had to kind of demonstrate that, again, as we said earlier, yes, Google will render JavaScript, but if you give it 2 million pages that are empty without JavaScript, it will struggle to find reason to. Or certainly that will take a very, very long time to get done. And then again, as I said before, we fixed a number of issues. Some of those issues could be done by the SEO team there. Other ones had to go on cards and on boards and things like that. But broadly speaking, we kind of pushed this idea that, right now you've got, I think it's like 2 million pages on there. And I believe the SEO team's goal was to get 1 million of them indexed, I think, something like that. So what did we do? Right. Well, as I say, we made a number of these changes here. And then, so we made a lot of the changes in September. I think we had one big SEO sprint, or two maybe big SEO sprints through September. And then we had the wait, or as I call it, the fear, right? Months of just not very, very much happening. Then, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, So again, there was some SEO work done in this time, but nothing as enormous and nothing as huge back here. So you can see at the time, 500k pages or so not indexed, 500k or so pages not indexed. Then December last year, I think there was a bit of an algo update, something like that. All of a sudden, overnight, bang, we went from 500k index pages to not far off 1.5 mil index pages. Again, that means nothing to most people, right? To most marketing directors, to most devs, and we've got a load more pages indexed. Well, what does that matter? That's why it matters, because we went from like 15k clicks a day to 45. It's triple the traffic, right? Ideally, any website that you work on, traffic should be a pretty exciting number. And we didn't even improve position or CTR that much in the scheme of things. And impressions only doubled, but what we did was by building out all this extra content, we were just able to do the classic thing of providing context to searchers and providing answers to searchers' questions. And from that, we almost triple traffic across 6 months. John, I think you wanted to briefly discuss some stuff that you did with the big agency, and then we'll get into questions.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think you can certainly look at it a different way. I mean, the way that I would look at this one, Chris, I think, because exactly what you've explained, they've got a problem. They need to find that problem. They need to fix that problem. You've used Lumar to actually get in there and actually understand and actually put forward where the solution might be. One example which I see on a day-to-day basis with a big agency that I know well what they're doing is they're actually setting up dashboards to actually monitor. In a similar sort of way to what we were showing earlier on with like health scores and obviously indexability and stuff like that. They've set up like a dashboard that allows them, and they're pulling Lumar data into it, that allows them to look on a client by client basis, because obviously agencies have multiple clients, but then they've gone, well, right, what are the core and big important core technical SEO metrics that we want to make sure that we see, and are they trending positively or are they trending negatively? So they've used the Lumar data to actually set up a dashboard that looks across all of their clients and sort of 10 key technical SEO areas, and be able to do it on a week by week basis at, well, how are we doing in those areas? Are we ticking boxes? Are we seeing positive trends? Are we on an upward curve? Are we seeing positive performance from our SEO? And if it's negative, we can jump straight in there and we can fix that as well. So they're kind of working as like an internal SEO that answers to the senior person within the business, because obviously they answer to a senior leader within the agency group who's sitting there and going, well, how are our SEO clients performing on a month by month basis? So they're actually doing the same sort of process within an agency as well. So for me, I would say that the boundaries don't necessarily need to be just for, an in-house SEO. I think as an agency SEO, using these metrics, you can actually show performance to your managing partner or your head of SEO or head of digital or whoever it might be within the agency as well. And I do know, as I say, I have a big agency that's doing that very, very well across multiple sites at the moment.
Yeah. So when my daughter was born, I did quite a long period of parental leave, and I used a Lumar dashboard effectively as my parental cover. I set it all up in Data Studio, as it was called then, and told the other members of the SEO team, was like, right, if any of these lines do this or do this, just go and find somebody, and then start to worry about it. If they stay flat, pretend I'm not here. Looking back, probably wasn't the best way of securing my job, but there we are.
There you have it. So what's great, we're going to get into some questions as well. So we've had a good spread of questions in as time's gone by, and like anything that I do, I always like to start with the first question we ever get. And to be honest, the first question we ever got was from Philip Rinaldi, who actually asked it before we even presented. But I think what's great is the irony of actually what is the question he's asked was the last thing that we were talking about. And it was about actually, I personally know what I think the answer is, but I'm going to throw the question out there at you, Chris, but it actually fits in really dovetailed nicely with that last case study. So Philip asked right at the start of the webinar, for advertising heavy websites, how would you add in added benefit of ad revenue as a reason to invest resources in technical SEO?
Well, I mean, the nice thing about ads, and I assume this is where your brain's going, John, as well, is that you got a CPM, right? You've got a number that says a page view or 1,000 page views is worth this.
Yeah.
And obviously there's going to be some up and down on that, based on a few different things. But the easy thing is you say, if a click is worth this amount of money, and we add 10% on, then you can add 10% onto your revenue. Like it's the difficult one is when you have page speed issues that are being caused by your ads, and again your marketing director says, okay, well, is this issue, is improving the CLS going to make me 10 grand a month? And you go, no, and then they go, well, in that case the adverts stay. That bit is always tricky, but at the same time, you'd be surprised what you can get if you speak to some ad providers. Some ad providers will sometimes go, oh, yeah, you've implemented this wrong. By doing this, we can actually improve things a little bit quicker, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I think where it hit up for me on that one when the question popped up is I remember years ago going into quite a big newspaper group, and as you say, changing the language as an SEO and selling it to them as to why they should be doing technical SEO was my view was, well, you've got 1 million pages in Google, you have 3 million pages on the website. So you've currently got to the the last case study, 2 million unindexed pages. So actually by understanding the pages that aren't indexed and getting those pages indexed, and I sold this to the CMO, I said that basically you're going to drive more clicks and more impressions to all of the pages that you collectively have across the website, which means that your sales team then has more impressions on a month-by-month basis to sell as advertising impressions to any customer that you're bringing on board to advertise in your newspaper group. And he was like, okay, so you're saying you could double the impressions that we get on a month-by-month basis. So my sales team actually has more impressions to sell as advertising impressions. Like, yes. And at that point there, the penny drops to the CMO and it's like, okay, let's do this.
Yeah.
I probably could have sat there and had a conversation for 3 months about technical SEO, but he didn't actually need to know what technical SEO was. He needed to know what the output of the technical SEO was. And then he was on board with it straight away. So hopefully, Philip, that gives you an answer to where we're coming from on that one. I'm conscious of time as well. We've got so many questions, which is great. So just looking at sort of the next side of things is a nice, simple, easy one from Cameron Knowlton. Where's the technical health scores in Lumar?
Okay, I'm just double checking. I think we might have answered this in the chat. So right now, the technical health scores in Lumar, they are a thing that needs to be turned on. I am very, very guilty right now of being the guy who has admin access and forgets how you do a lot of things. What I would say your best bet probably is to speak to your CSM. Or send something out to our support team, because I believe it is something that needs to be turned on, I think, especially if you're an older user as well. Also, we do need certain sources in order to make those work. That's
fair enough. That's the answer there and there. So moving on to Taylor Ross, do you know how A/B testing affects SEO? I mean, you talked about it briefly, Chris, about actually using sort of lower category level pages to do some testing in. So Taylor's wondering, from an A/B testing point of view, how does that affect SEO running them through 2 separate URLs? For example, domain.com test 1 and domain.com test 2 are the same product page. And test 2 is set to no index, but is shown to viewers 50% of the time. Will the page get penalized for cloaking?
So broadly speaking, no, I don't think it will. I've seen I'm trying to think now. I think the official guideline by Google is that you should canonicalize them. But I'm going to be totally honest with you. I have seen that fail. I have had that fail on me. One thing that you can do is, broadly speaking, just don't serve the page 2 version to Google. That's easy enough to do when it comes down to just organizing your splits. I think if you're no indexing, cloaking for me, that's not cloaking. There's a slight variation between the 2 pages, right? They're almost identical, but there will be, I mean, even if it's a pretty extensive change, like a pretty extensive styling change or whatever, that page still is for red dresses. You know what I mean? That page is still for, whatever. It's not like it's being entirely duplicitous. Also, the one thing that gets me is that Google's official wording on how long you should leave an A/B test is no longer than necessary, which doesn't mean anything. But I think no. I think if you're no indexing it, I don't think you'll get penalised. Bear in mind, cloaking is a manual penalty that I don't think any test will be running long enough for you to get. And I think any manual examination of the site would be very apparent as to what you're doing.
No, I tend to agree.
Yeah, do look at the guidelines that are out there.
Yeah, but I would suggest to me that isn't cloaking either. So I wouldn't see that as an issue personally. And I mean, when you start thinking about some of these larger sites, I mean, it's like Amazon. I can't remember the actual statistic, but Amazon, you know, on an ongoing basis has its many multiples of A/B tests ongoing constantly across their website, and they're certainly not getting penalized from a any issue in any way, shape, or form, or they wouldn't be doing it. They've been doing it for many years as well. I mean, just looking back to Philip's asked a question as well, is sort of going back to your effort chart and stuff like that for low effort and high impact changes. How long is too long for it to be completed by a dev team?
How long is too long for it to be completed by a dev team? It kind of depends on how long their sprints are, I think is the best way to put it. Sorry, I'm just looking there. There we go. For low effort and high. Oh, that question. I was just reading the question and it moved.
Sorry, I was taking away, Chris. So it's just basically how long, you know, from a low effort point of view and high impact. So obviously the sweet spot ones that you talked about, Chris. You know, how long should it take dev to effectively latch onto that and fix that? And I think you're answering it the right way, is around sprints.
A sprint. If it can be done in a sprint, to me, it's low effort. So if it can be done in 2 weeks, then I think you're laughing. Sorry, to go back to Cameron's question, the answer is the health scores and the funnel are all part of the impact functionality, which is a separate part of the subscription that you need turning on.
There's the answer. There we have it there. They are very useful. I must admit, I have them in place, and I do see the value from them for sure. So it's well worth looking into, Cameron, for you know, from me speaking from my perspective. I think it might be interesting to you know, reach out and get in touch with your Lumar representative and see what you get.
Yeah.
So Prince is also just nipped in here towards the end as well, and just asking the question of, we usually see GA and Adobe Tag Managers as the main culprit slowing down pages. Are there any strategies you can suggest for managing these tags better?
So thing number one, audit them. First thing I always do is jump into those and go through everything that's been loaded and say, right, who owns this? Who owns that? Who's using this, more importantly? And if nobody can give you an answer, get rid of it. You'd be amazed the amount of tag managers I've seen where, so-and-so wanted to trial this UX software or whatever. It's like, well, that person left the business 6 months ago. Did we sign up for it? No. Right, we'll get it off. That's a load of JavaScript we're loading for absolutely no reason. That's thing number one. Thing number two, if you can, and I know it gets difficult, make it one of the last things that happens on the page. Prioritize content over, tag manager, etc. Ultimately, I'm of the opinion that a couple of tags not firing and you missing a little bit of data is actually worth having for a user that keeps coming back to the site because they really like it because it's nice and fast, right? So the more you can asynchronize, I know you've got no control over what comes through the pipe, but if you can push everything to the back a little bit, just make sure that content gets there first, the better.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think you hit the nail on the head there, because it's finding that sort of balance within that. Every marketing director, again, when you think about it, loves to have their tags on there from a paid media point of view. They need to see what's going on. So you'll always find the Facebook tag, you'll always find the GA tag, you'll always find the Google Ads tag, you'll always find all of those sorts of ones. The one which I've seen some success with is actually the chatbot. Actually, you can defer the chatbot load. There's an incredible amount of chatbots, actually, when you start analyzing them, are a huge load from a JavaScript point of view on the page. So actually, like Chris says, if you've got a chatbot, defer the chatbot to the back end of the load and actually optimize the chatbot. And actually, I did some work with a few of these chatbot companies to actually how we could actually optimize it for a client site to actually make it load easier and load faster. And we saw some huge improvements in the SEO speed scores. So
Even,
if I was going to pick one out, would be the chatbot.
Even better, make it dependent on interaction.
That's true. That's a really good idea. So we're just starting to get going, and we've actually run out of time, guys. I mean, we're literally, I mean, it's one of those, this 50 minutes of webinar is absolutely flown by, and I can see that we're dropping off with a few people. Obviously, you want to get home. I'll get on with the day because it's starting in America. All I can say is a massive thank you to you guys for attending today. It's a really, really interesting topic to actually start to think about how you can actively prioritize technical SEO and obviously sell it up the chain. And I'm hoping that we've answered quite a few of those questions for you today. Obviously, from my point of view, please, if you're interested and you're not a Lumar user at the minute, please do reach out for a demo to one of the representatives of Lumar. On the next slide, if Chris just knocks it down, we actually have a QR code which you guys can scan now and help yourself, and reach out to us to request that demo, because we'll take you straight through to that page, rather than you having to come on the site and do all those different things that you might need to do. Obviously, we constantly write about this content, and as I said, today we'll be putting live on the Lumar blog. In a few days' time, we'll be putting obviously reference to today, a write-up of the whole post, the questions that we've answered, an audio of the whole Zoom call that we've done, so you guys can get back into your own leisure and actually react to it. But please do check in with the Lumar blog as well. There's a huge amount of very, very good resources and content on there for over many, many, many years. It surprises me actually when you read back through it how much stuff is actually in there as well. A few guys that are around obviously in the summer, middle of the summer, I know, but if you're not on holiday or you're not doing something and you're in the office, our next webinar is on e-commerce internal linking, which again is a huge subject. It's quite an important one as well, because actually if you can get that internal linking correct across a big e-commerce site and actually save yourself some crawl budget with Google, the effects that you will see are fantastic. So please, if you fancy, reach out and sign up on our website today for the 17th of August. My name is Jon Myers. I've had the pleasure of hosting you guys today. Massive thank you to Chris Spann for obviously presenting today, and I've very much enjoyed the interaction, having the conversations, and the geeky SEO chats as well. So a big thank you from us, and thank you, and look forward to seeing you on our future webinars. Thank you.
Thanks very much.